Hello there, you're welcome to another tutorial on SC Tuts. I'm Sir Classy, and in this tutorial, we're going to learn how to compress vocals in FL Studio. Now, we're going to walk through the very basics, what a compressor is, how to use a compressor, what the parameters mean, and how to get great results on your vocal track. Hit the subscribe button and let's get started. Alright, so here we have a compressor. And what a compressor does is that it controls the dynamic range of the sound running through it. And then the dynamic range is the most quiet part and the loudest part. It tries to find an average of both the quiet part and the loudest part and have a balanced and even sound that will be pleasant to the ear and also make your track sound much more polished. You may be using another type of compressor or even a hardware compressor. A lot of compressors share some features which you can commonly find. An example is the threshold, the attack, the ratio, the release, and the makeup gain. This is the rate. You don't always find this on many compressors, and I'll explain what it means. And these are other features also. I'm going to explain what it means as this lesson goes on. So now let's start from the top. Right here we have the compression but it tells you the compression currently going on and the input signal as well. So if I were to play the links or the routed track, I tell her me she calm down, yeah, with the Gucci and the Prada, try to call her father, yeah. So this just works as an input meter. It tells you the levels of the signal coming in. And now this is the threshold. The threshold tells you when the compressor will start working. It sets for example, this is at 9. So if I were to take it all the way to negative, let's say 5.8, so it's going to tell the compressor whenever it gets to 5.8, it should start working. Let's listen and see. You see, it already sounds reduced. They're already taking it down now. That's why you have the makeup gain here, which we'll come back to. So the threshold tells the compressor when it should start working. So since the input here is already above 0, so anything from here is fine, because once you just control the lowest parts, so it's best you listen to your vocal track to hear for even compression when you're playing with the threshold. You can always adjust the threshold as you listen to your vocal track. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb my peace. Do not disturb me, please. And if my brother, I tell her me she calm down. With the Gucci and the Prada, I try to call her father. Yeah. Alright, it's already sounding even. Then the next we'll look at is the ratio. This is the next most important feature on compressor. Now the ratio simply, just like it says, a ratio 2:1, 4:1, and 10:1. Now, what the ratio does is that it tells the compressor for every 2 decibels that goes above the threshold is set here, it should only add a 1 decibel of gain. That is, if let's say this is already -1, so if it gets to, let's say, +1 or +2, it's going to reduce it, and it's going to reduce that +2 dB or +4 dB and take it to just 1 dB. So this is what 2:1 means. If I take it to 4:1, of course 4:1 is more aggressive than 2:1. You can say the compressor that if it exceeds the compressor by 4 decibels, it should take it down or reduce it down and just add only a single decibel instead of 4 decibel initially increased. So most times I recommend for compressor ratios for vocals, you stick within 3.5 to 4.5 in your 4.5:1. That's between 3.5:1 and 4.5:1 to get optimum compression for your lead vocals or even your backup vocals as well. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb my peace. Do not disturb me, please. And if my brother, I tell her me she calm down. Alright, so So the next important button here, all the buttons are all important, but they have like they all vary in their importance as well. So the attack here tells the compressor how fast it should start working. Now, when the signal comes into the compressor, that is this lead vocal, for example, so you tell the compressor immediately it stays for 1 millisecond, starts acting, or immediately it stays for 0.3 milliseconds, starts acting, and you can adjust it as much as you want. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb my peace. Do not disturb me, please. And if my brother. So for lead vocals, most time between 1 and 10 milliseconds is fine. Depends on what you want to achieve, but between 1 and 10 milliseconds is fine. You just simply have to listen and adjust it to fit your track and your vocal style. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb my peace. Do not disturb me, please. And if my brother, I tell her me. All right, so now we have release. Release is the opposite of attack. It tells the compressor when it should let go after it stays for some time, or when the signal sustains for some time. So now we can tell the compressor to release after 0.3 seconds or 300 milliseconds, depends on how you want to convert it, or you want it to stay for 1.2 seconds, or you even want it to be automatic. So immediately it sustains, maybe a particular signal sustains enough and it just lets it go. It kind of like works like a smart compression. It does the decision for you. It lets go by itself. You don't, because there are times you should use the auto, but I would not recommend using the auto because sometimes it gets it wrong. It's not that smart yet, unless if you're using maybe the isotope compressor, which is very, very smart. That is the Nectar compressor in isotope. But if it's the SSL, it's still really, really analog. So I advise you use between 300 and 600 milliseconds, or 0.3 or 0.6 seconds for your compression for lead vocals, because this compressor is simply not smart enough. It's a great compressor, but it's not smart enough yet to handle auto release for compression. Then here we have the makeup gain. Now you see after compressing, do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Now let me turn off the compressor and you see the difference. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. You can see that the compressor actually made the vocals, it turned down the volume of the vocals. Now we want to bring it back up, and that's what this makeup gain is for. This makeup gain, like it says, makeup, it makes up for the lost loudness. So we adjust it accordingly and we listen. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb my peace. Do not disturb me, please. And if my brother, I tell her me she calm down. Yeah, with the Gucci and the Prada. Try to call her father. Yeah. Balance. All right, so now that sounds much more controlled. The volume is back up, and now we can hear what's going on. All right, so now we're going to look at these buttons right here. First of all, let's start with the in. This in is like a bypass button, kind of like what this does here in FL Studio. When this is on, it means that the compressor is working. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb my peace. I want to turn it off. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb my peace. So that's simply what this in does. And here, this analog button, this is a model compressor, an actual existing analog compressor. So typically analog compressors tend to have more warmth, had a little bit of saturation to make it sound even more pleasant and warm. And it had a little bit of noise too while using the analog feature. So let's listen and see. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb my peace. Do not disturb me, please. Then we'll turn it off and listen to compare. Do not disturb me, please. Do not disturb my peace. Baby girl, I want you, please. Do not disturb. So the analog just adds a little bit of warmth in the high end of the vocal. And this fade right here is connected to this rate S. Now, what this does is when this fade button is in, it fades in the signal coming in, or it fades out the signal coming on. So it has a unity gain. That's when there's a balance in the gain coming in. So this here, this rate tells it how long it should hold on for until it gets the unity gain. So I typically don't use this in compression. I usually leave this off. All I use usually is this in and the analog and these buttons right here. And most times, what you need in a compressor really is the threshold, ratio, attack, release, and makeup. Everything else is just to spice up your track. You don't really need others. You just need threshold, attack, ratio, makeup, and release, and you'll be fine on most times when compressing anything, vocals, drums, melodies, goes on. All right, so that's it and how to use this compressor for processing your vocals, whether it's your backup or your lead vocals. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up so that other people that need this tutorial can easily find it right here on YouTube, and also subscribe to get daily updates as we upload helpful tutorial videos every single day here on YouTube. I remain Sir Classy. This is SC Toots. Cheers.